Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. I'm Andrew Lee, and I'm part of the Understood team. The topic of today's webinar is Chromebooks, and we're really happy to have with us here today Jamie Martin. He's an assistive technology consultant and trainer and one of our experts here at Understood. Hi, Jamie, how are you?
Hi, Andrew. I'm super excited to be here in New York City today in the Understood offices.
That's awesome. We're doing this webinar live, and so Jamie's with us here in the office, and I think it's really exciting to have him with all of our staff. Now, Jamie, can you tell our audience a little bit about yourself and your background?
I sure can, Andrew. But since we're talking about Chromebooks today, I thought it would be more appropriate to have my Chromebook introduce me. So I brought my Chromebook with me today, and we're going to use a tool that I'll be talking about a little bit later to give you a little bit of introduction. So here we go.
Hello. My name is Samantha, and I live inside this Chromebook. It is my great pleasure to introduce Jamie Martin, who will probably bore you to tears during the next hour. Just kidding, ha ha ha. Actually, Jamie has worked with dyslexic kids for many years, and he knows a lot about how assistive technology can help them in school. I can't wait to find out how Chromebooks are making things like reading and writing easier for students with dyslexia and other learning issues. Take it away, Jamie and Andrew.
That's awesome, Jamie. It's a great introduction and shows really kind of brings us to the topic of this webinar, Chromebooks. I'll let you take it away.
All right. Thank you very much, Andrew. Like I said, I'm really happy to be here at the Understood offices talking about a topic that a lot of people are very much interested in these days, and that's Chromebooks and how Chromebooks can be used to help out kids with dyslexia and other learning issues in school. So let's start off by just giving some very general ideas and information about Chromebooks. So the first thing to know about Chromebooks is that they are laptop devices. So unlike something like an iPad or a mobile phone, it does open up like a book, hence the name Chromebooks, and it does have a screen and a keyboard built into the same device. Those devices, the Chromebooks, run on what's known as the Chrome OS, or the Chrome operating system. And that's an operating system created by Google, very much like Windows or Mac OS X, if you have a Macintosh computer or an Apple computer. But the Chrome OS, or the Chrome operating system, is what runs the Chromebook. Chromebooks are often less expensive than desktop computers. Not always, because I've seen some Chromebooks that are even close to about $1,000, which is what you'll be paying for a regular desktop computer or regular laptop computer. But very much, oftentimes they are less expensive. So, the Chromebook that Samantha lives in, who introduced me today, that's a Samsung Chromebook, and I only paid about $200 for that. And I think that's the kind of Chromebook that you're going to see your child use in school, because they are more economical for schools to kind of get into. Chromebooks have become a great source of assistive technology for dyslexic kids and kids who have other learning issues, mostly because a lot of the assistive technology companies who have created software and like things like iPad apps in the past have really got on board with the Chromebook platform and are starting to create what are known as extensions and apps so that their tools can be accessible to your kids. We'll talk more about extensions and apps a little bit later on. Chromebooks are being used by more and more schools these days. One, because they're more economical, and two, I think, is because they really play nicely with the Google Apps for Education. So I think you're familiar with your kids using things like Google Docs, for their school projects. Chromebooks are really kind of, they're a great platform for that kind of thing. But now with the assistive technology being kind of incorporated into the Chrome OS operating system, the complete package is becoming better and more useful for our LD kids. And then the last thing to kind of know in general is that Unlike something like an Apple computer where the hardware or the computer itself is made by Apple, Chromebooks are made by several different companies. So, the one that I have is a Samsung, but another brand that's popular in schools is Acer, or LG makes Chromebooks as well. So you have a lot of different options in terms of the brand of your Chromebook, but the operating system will be the same on all of them. That's kind of similar to Windows as well. When you have a Windows computer, it's made by several different companies, but it's all still the Windows operating system. So now let's take a look at the difference between desktop computers and Chromebooks. And I thought it would be helpful just to look at what the screen looks like on your computer. So on a desktop computer, you have a desktop. And this is like a virtual desktop. So if you're sitting at your desk now and you see sticky notes and papers all over the place, like my desk is at home, on your virtual, and our desktop here, right in this room that we're using, has stuff all over it as well. I'm glad you can't see that. But on my very neat desktop computer, as you see on the screen, I have all of my information, my files, and my documents arranged in file folders, as you see next to arrow number 1, or individual files or individual documents, which you see next to arrow number 2. And you can organize all of your information that way on this virtual desktop. And the other key aspect of a desktop computer is that you can install software programs and kind of collect the ones that you use the most into a dock, which you see underneath arrow number 3. And on a Mac computer anyway. So on my MacBook, which is on the screen now, you can see all of my software collected down there in that very large dock. On the other hand, when you're talking about a Chromebook, it's a much cleaner, because the majority of your information that you're working on a Chromebook is not stored on your computer. It's stored in the cloud. And when we say in the cloud, it's not like the clouds in the sky. It's stored on a computer somewhere else, but you can access that information remotely from your Chromebook. There are two kind of distinguishing features that you can see on the screen of a Chromebook. Underneath arrow number 1 is kind of like the Chromebook dock. There's a little search, kind of a magnifying glass in the lower left-hand corner. It might be hard to see on your screen. But then you see some of the Chrome apps underneath arrow number 1. The main one is the Chrome web browser. You can use the Chrome web browser on any desktop computer, on your Windows or on your Mac computer. But for a Chromebook, that's really kind of the driving app. Most of the work you're going to do in a Chromebook is in that Chrome web browser. But then you can see there are some other apps there as well. I have my Gmail app in there, my Google search app. And you can add more to that dock area for the apps that you're going to use more frequently. And again, I'll talk more about apps later and what exactly apps are on a Chromebook. But then the other feature on your screen is the notification center, which is next to arrow number 2. And in there, when you click on that, you'll find your settings, your internet connection, your Wi-Fi, the router that you're connected to, your battery life, all things like that. That's all in your notification center next to arrow number 2. So now if you look more of a side-by-side comparison, we'll talk about a few individual points here. So on your desktop computer, many of the tasks that you do can be done without the internet. And that's because you're allowed on a desktop computer to install software like Microsoft Word, or on a Mac, Apple's iWork Pages or something like that, where all you're doing is working locally on your computer itself. You don't necessarily need to rely on the internet to use that software. On a Chromebook, many of the functions that you're going to be using do rely on the internet and the Chrome web browser. And actually, I should say that on a Chromebook, Google does not allow you to install other web browsers, you have to use their own Chrome web browser. So if you're used to using Firefox or Safari, you will not be able to use that on the Chromebook. You have to go into that Chrome web browser. So that's the first kind of side-by-side comparison. Next, I kind of alluded to this earlier, many of the files that you are working on a desktop computer are stored right on the hard drive, and you need to back up those files so that you don't lose them if your computer crashes or something horrible like that happens. On a Chromebook, most of what you're working on is stored in that kind of virtual cloud. It's stored on other computers somewhere else so that you can access it from various places. One example of that cloud storage is the Google Apps for Education. And there we're talking about Google Docs, Google Slides, things that kids would be using frequently in school to work on projects. So that's not stored right on the Chromebook, that's stored somewhere else, which is, you'll see a little bit later on, that's a key advantage to using a Chromebook because that information is available in so many different places. Software and security features on a desktop computer oftentimes need to be updated manually. So you might get a notification that you need to update, or there's an update available for your software, and then you need to go in and take care of that manually. On a Chromebook, pretty much everything is updated automatically. So the Chrome operating system is updated automatically. The security features are automatically updated as well. And the same thing with apps and extensions, which is kind of like the Chromebook equivalent to software. So the cool thing about that is that if you're using a particular tool on a Chromebook, one day you might be using it, the next day you kind of log back in, and you'll see that it's been updated. It's kind of a nice surprise.
That's a really good, Jamie, this is Andrew. That's a really good summary of sort of the differences. Now, where do most of our parents, I think, have experience with mobile devices like mobile phones, iPads, digital tablets. Where do those fit in this difference between a desktop computer and a Chromebook, or do they not fit in at all?
Well, mobile devices, generally run on individual apps. So you're working. They're more along the lines of the desktop computer, where you're working within a specific app on that device. Really kind of the key distinguishing feature of a Chromebook is that the majority of your work is done kind of in the cloud or over the internet, basically. Desktop computers, mobile devices like an iPad or another kind of tablet, you can do a lot more work right on that device itself.
And if you had, just to further go kind of tease out this distinction, for a Chromebook, if you don't have internet access, could you still use it?
Yes, for certain apps you can use the Chromebook. But I'd say for the vast majority of what kids are going to be using it for in school, they are going to need to have internet access for that.
Great.
Okay, so we're going to move on here to some pros and cons of Chromebooks. What are some advantages and disadvantages? And I like to start with the disadvantages, Andrew, because I like to end on a positive note. So a couple of negatives first about a Chromebook. One is that some of the tools that you might be used to or that your kids might be used to using on a desktop computer are not available for Chromebooks. So, I'm thinking of things like Microsoft Word or Apple's iWork suite, Keynote or Pages or something like that. In terms of assistive technology, there's a key piece of assistive technology for dyslexic kids that I often recommend called Inspiration, which is a visual graphic organizer. That's not available for the Chromebook, at least not yet. Inspiration could create a Chrome tool for that, but they have not yet at this point. So that's one kind of negative at this point. Another one is that Chromebooks do not have CD or DVD drives. So if you have a movie collection or if you're still listening to music on CDs and you're using your device for that, your computing device, you will not be able to use those CDs or DVDs on your Chromebook. It does make the Chromebook a lot lighter and smaller, which is a pro, which is an advantage. But that's something to be aware of if you're thinking about purchasing one for your kids. Another disadvantage is that Chromebooks have limited hard drive storage. So if you're still in that kind of state of mind where you're a little bit nervous about, cloud storage or having somebody else, have access to your information or storing your information for you, and you like to store most of your information on your device, Chromebooks may not be, optimal for that kind of thing, because most of what you're storing when you're working on a Chromebook is virtually kind of in that cloud. There is limited hard drive storage on there, but that's mostly for downloads or screenshots or things like that. So let's end with the positives here. So probably, in terms of assistive technology, a huge advantage of a Chromebook is that all of the AT tools that your kids have are attached to their Google account and will follow them to any device that they go to. So here's what that means. If your child is signed into their Google account and they go to the Chrome Web Store, which we'll talk about in a minute, and access a extension or an app, and an assistive technology tool, that when that's purchased or downloaded from the Chrome Web Store, that gets attached to their specific Google account. So they can go to another Chromebook or another desktop computer that has the Chrome web browser on it, sign into their Google account, and all of their tools will show up on that particular computer. So they can access those tools anywhere. They're not device specific with a Chromebook like they are with a desktop computer or something like an iPad. Another positive is that Chromebooks often have longer battery lives than traditional laptops. There's less kind of internal stuff for that device to run, so it doesn't take as much battery power. And the last positive is that it's really easy for teachers and parents to create supervised accounts for their kids. And I'll give you a quick example. My son is 10 years old, and they have Chromebooks in their school. But he, in his Google account, does not have access to email, and he has very limited access to YouTube. So his school is supervising his account and protecting him by not allowing him to have access to kind of questionable material, things like that.
Hey, Jamie, this is Andrew. I have a really kind of basic question about Chromebooks. My child's school, my son's school, does use them, and they're at school, but I actually haven't ever touched one. Now, is this something I could just go to a local computer store and literally try them out, or are Chromebooks only sort of available in schools?
No, you can touch my Chromebook afterwards, Andrew, if you like. But Chromebooks are available to individuals. So you can go to a store, try one out. You're looking at a huge range in terms of price, but kind of like a Windows computer, they're all going to work the same. So it's good to read some reviews in terms of what the hardware is like. But they're very easy to use. If you've ever used a web browser, you'll be fine with this. A lot of people have experience with Google Docs just on their desktop computer. It's not going to look any different on a Chromebook. So very easy to get into. But let me know. You can test drive mine afterwards.
Awesome.
All right. So now the moment everyone's been waiting for, I think. How can Chromebooks be used as assistive technology? And for today, we're specifically talking about assistive technology for kids with dyslexia or other learning issues that sometimes co-occur with dyslexia. And really, what it comes down to is that these extensions and these apps, and even later on we'll talk about some tools that you can find right in Google Docs. It's these extensions and these apps that are making Chromebooks accessible to kids with language-based learning disabilities. So we'll talk about extensions, we'll talk about apps, and then we'll talk about tools and add-ons that you can incorporate into Google Docs to make reading and writing language-based activities much easier for our kids. So where do you find these extensions and these apps? Well, there's a Chrome web store. So just like on your iPad where there's an app store, or just like on your Mac desktop where there's also an app store, or a Windows device where there's a Windows store, on Chrome, on the Chrome web browser, there's a Chrome web store. And when you are looking for any of the extensions or apps that I'm talking about today, you can just type those into, there's a search box, which you see next to that blue arrow. You just type it in there and hit your return key, and it'll pop it up into the Chrome web store. Some of them are free, some of them you have to pay for, just like not any other app stores. So we're going to kind of break this down into 3 sections. We'll talk about Chrome extensions first. The key thing to know about Chrome extensions is that they are tools that work in conjunction with other tools, other things within that Chrome web browser. So, for example, if you're working on a Google Doc, all of these extensions can be used with that Google Doc that you're working on. So in that way, they're very much like a piece of desktop software where you're using a tool with another tool. You'll see apps a little bit later, a little bit differently. When you get a extension from the Chrome Web Store, it's going to show up in your toolbar up at the top of that Chrome web browser in the top right-hand corner. So next to that blue arrow, you see a whole line of all the extensions that I have on my Chromebook. The first one we're going to talk about is a very simple text-to-speech extension called Speak-It. And Speak-It is free to download from the Chrome Web Store. When you are ready to use it, you just click on that little icon in that toolbar. And actually, let me get a document up here. So this is a blog entry from the Voice Dream Reader website. And if I want this text to be read out loud, I would click on that little Speak It or that speaker icon up in that toolbar, and it's going to open up that little kind of text-to-speech window and start reading this text out loud. And that's it. That's basically what it does. It'll read any text that you have on your screen that you can select with the cursor. It'll read it out loud with a little play button, or there's a pause button, which you actually see there. Okay, it's something a little more robust with a lot more features. There's a very popular extension called Read and Write for Google. If you're familiar with Read and Write Gold for the desktop, it's made by the same company, TextHelp. For some reason, their extension icon is right in that URL, in that web browser window. I don't know how they got that in there, because the other ones are just kind of floating off to the right-hand side. But that's where you would see that if you were installing the Read and Write for Google extension. So, as its name implies, there are reading tools and writing tools. So look at the reading tools first. So this is a Time for Kids article on Black History Month, which we are in the middle of now in February. And if I needed help reading this article out loud, I would just click on that play button in the Read and Write for Google Chrome toolbar that opens up. First, you have to click on the icon up there at the top of the screen. It'll open up that toolbar, and you click the play button above arrow number 1. And then the difference here between Speak It and Read and Write is that this will provide highlighting as it's being read out loud. So you see that underneath arrow number 2. It will highlight the sentence that it's reading with yellow, and the word that it's on is in blue, which is underneath the number 2 arrow. And this is that tool that I was using at the very beginning when my friend Samantha was introducing me at the beginning of the webinar. There are also annotation tools in Read and Write for Google. So if you are highlighting things like main ideas and supporting details, you have 4 different highlighting markers to use to take notes on, things like that. And then there are 3 other reading tools I'd like to point out quickly. One is a dictionary and picture dictionary, which is above arrow number 1. So if I highlight a word that I don't know what it means, I can click on one of those 2. The dictionary will give us a text definition, which you can have read out loud with text-to-speech. The picture dictionary will give us an image to help us understand what that word means. Arrow number 2 is pointing to another reading feature called the screenshot reader. So sometimes on a website, you'll find text that you can't select. So what you would do with the screenshot reader is kind of drag a window over that text. It will do what's known as optical character recognition, or OCR. You may have heard me talk about that before. And it'll convert that text into readable text and read it out loud. And then the last one is underneath arrow number 3, and that's a simplify tool. And what that does is take a large group of text and will condense it or shorten it down into a shorter passage so you can get the general idea of what that means. And then you can go back to the full text and read it later on. And then for the writing tools in Read and Write, the first one I want to point out is the word prediction. So to activate the word prediction, you click on that little crystal ball above arrow number 1. It will open up a word prediction window, and you have some choices there if you have difficulty with spelling. So in this sentence, Black History Month is celebrated in February. February is a fairly difficult word to spell. So if I can get to FEB and I look in my word prediction box, next to arrow number 2, it is the correct spelling for the month of February. And I can click on that word or type in the number 1, and it will insert that into my text. There are 2 other writing tools that I would like to quickly highlight. One is that it does have integrated speech to text or dictation as well. So not only do you have the word prediction, but you have a dictation tool to use if you need it. And arrow number 2 is pointing to a voice note tool. So if I want to add a voice note to this, I don't want the text to be printed out, I can click on that and it will open up a little kind of recording window, and I can create a voice note and attach it to this Google Doc. So as you can see, there are a lot of features in this Read and Write for Google extension that kids can find really useful in school. Okay, moving on to the next extension, we have readability. And what readability does is make things easier to read, basically. So actually, it'll make more sense if we show you something. This is an article that I posted on Understood not too long ago, maybe a week and a half ago or so ago. Understood does a very good job of making their text readable on their website, but there are still some things that might be distracting to kids with attention issues, for example. So, those social media icons on the left, your eye might be drawn to those and you get distracted from the text. Or the links over on the right-hand side might distract you from reading the text. My picture might distract you from reading the text. So what readability will do is take just the words of that article and put them into a new view for you. So once we're on the page that we want, you click on the armchair icon. That's the readability extension. Click on Read Now, and you'll see it just takes that text from that web page and puts it in a whole new view. You also have some other options here. Next to that arrow, you can change the font. You can change the font size. You can change the space in the margins. All as a way to customize how the text looks so that you can read it, easier. You can also incorporate one of those text-to-speech tools. So you can use Speak It, or you can use Read and Write for Google to now read this text out loud once it's in readability.
I think that's probably really useful these days when you have these articles on the internet otherwise that have so much advertising and just distraction everywhere. That's a really great extension.
Yeah, that's true. Time for Kids is one of my favorite websites, but it's filled with ads, and it just makes the kids with ADHD crazy because they don't know where to focus because they're trying to look at everything at the same time. Okay, next extension is called Snap and Read Universal. This is made by a company called Don Johnston. When you click on it and you open it up, you get a little toolbar running down the right-hand side of your screen. Next to arrow number 1, you see a very basic text-to-speech tool. And that works like, your standard text-to-speech, so I'm not going to spend time on that right now. The key feature that you want to remember about Snap and Read, though, is next to arrow number 2. And they call this text leveling. Basically what that means is that the extension will look at a group of text, search out difficult to understand words, and replace them with easier to understand words. So kids with reading comprehension issues, this could be a huge, huge help. So here's another article that I've converted in readability. We're coming up on a presidential election, in case you haven't noticed. And this article is about how the Electoral College works. So I've already converted it to make it more readable, but now I want to use Snap and Read in order to make comprehension a little bit easier. So once I have Snap and Read open, I select the text that I want to do this text leveling in. I click on that text leveling button in the right-hand side, and then I zoomed in on it here so you can see it, an example of it. The original word in this sentence was primary, like the primary election. Kids who may not know what the primary means. So what the Snap and Read extension did was replace the word primary with the word first. So it gives you first or most important. So now if they're reading through that with the new converted text, it's going to make it easier to understand. I think it's a really useful feature of Snap and Read. Co-Writer is also made by Don Johnston, the same company. It's widely known as one of the best word prediction tools available. So if we go back into a Google Doc and I'm typing this sentence, my first day of school, as a dyslexic child, I might spell school very phonetically, as S-K-U-L-E. But once the Co-Writer extension is open, I have my word prediction box there, and I glance down, and the first option is the one I want, next to arrow number 2. If I'm not sure that that's the one I want, I can hover on that word in the word prediction box with the cursor, and it will read it out loud first to preview it. Then I can click on it, and it will insert it into my text. And then the last thing I want to point out next to arrow number 3 is that Co-Writer recently included a dictation option. So, this is another tool. There are a lot of these writing tools, they're starting to incorporate both word prediction and dictation into their writing tools, which I think is fantastic. So you can either use the word prediction choices in Co-Writer, or you can switch over to dictation if you need to. If you don't see the correct option in that word prediction box, you can just dictate that word instead. Then the other key feature about Co-Writer as a word prediction tool is that it has something called topic dictionaries. And basically what that is it will load in a set of vocabulary specific to whatever topic you're writing on. So I created a topic dictionary for school, and I turn that on. So if I use Co-Writer with the school topic dictionary on, it's going to start predicting school-related words first, back in that word prediction box. So, if I have like blackboard, if I'm typing the word blackboard, I might only have to type in BL, and blackboard will be, predicted first in that box. So that's a huge feature that a lot of word prediction tools do not have. And then the last extension that I want to talk about is called Ginger. And Ginger is what's known as a contextual spell and grammar checker. And basically what that means is that it will look at entire sentences at a time and group each word into the context of that sentence. So it's going to pick up on more errors than the spell check in Google Docs would get, for example. So here's a sentence that I wrote in Google Docs with a few words spelled incorrectly on purpose. Friend is spelled incorrectly, plays. The entire sentence is, my friend plays baseball too. Too meaning also. So Google Docs picked up on the word friend and plays, but it did not pick up on the word too, because too is spelled correctly there. It's not the correct form of too that I want. So something like Ginger can be used to make that correction. So when you click on the ginger icon up in that toolbar again, it'll open up a box, a ginger box. You can paste your text into that ginger box, and it will highlight the words that are spelled incorrectly. It will show you the correct spelling in that gray bar underneath. And then you hover on each word and press the check mark if you want to replace it in the text. If you want to add it to your vocabulary, you can hit the plus mark. But the thing I want to point out here is that Ginger did pick up on that error of that homonym too. So it is giving us the TOO, which means also. All right, so that's it for the extensions. There are many, many more, but we don't have time to talk about everything today. So now let's talk about apps, the Chrome apps.
Jamie,
Yes.
in terms of just the timing, I want to leave a little bit of time at the end. So if for the apps, if you want to highlight just the major ones, that would be great. Just
Sure.
to make sure we have some time at the end for questions.
Yes, I'll go a little bit quicker too. I am looking at my watch. All right, so for Chrome apps are more like the apps you would find on your iPad. They're going to open up a whole new window by itself, usually, on your Chromebook. To find them, you click on that magnifying glass in that lower left-hand kind of dock area on your Chromebook, and then you'll see all of your apps. And this looks very much like your iPad would. Okay. So the first one we're going to talk about is CoWriter Universal. I know I talked about CoWriter Universal as an extension, but it is an app as well. It looks exactly like it would in your Google Doc, except that in the app version of CoWriter, it opens up its own word processor. Now the advantage to doing it here rather than in Google Docs is that if you do it within the app and then you look at your CoWriter Universal app on another device, like your iPad or your desktop, you can pick up the same document on that other device right where you left off. So this kind of works with the cloud as well. And then you can also export your document out to Google Drive into a Google Doc if you want to. WordQ is also a word prediction app for the Chromebook. Works pretty much like something like Read and Write or CoWriter, but it does have one feature that the other ones don't have, and you'll see what I'm talking about in a second. So in this sentence, in order to bake the cake, I needed to buy flour. And I'm not sure whether to spell it Flour or Flower. So if you look down the bottom of the screen, you'll see both of them are there. And if I click on one of them, it actually gives me a usage sentence so that I can preview that spelling in a sentence first before I insert it into my text. And that's going to help kids pick out the right option from that word prediction bar. It too has incorporated dictation, so you can use either dictation or word prediction right in that WordQ app. And then you can save it as a Google Doc as well. Voice Note 2, very quickly, is another app for Chromebooks. It opens up into another kind of word processing program, and it runs on dictation. Pretty much like the other dictations that we've been talking about, just another option for you to have. So that's called Voice Note 2. Learning Ally Link is how you can access your Learning Ally books on a Chromebook. So when you open that app, you'll see your Learning Ally library. You do need a Learning Ally account for this one. And when you open it up, you'll see Learning Ally provides human narrated text, and it'll sync it up with electronic text for many of their books in their library. They're called voice text books. And then within the Learning Ally app, you do have some options in terms of what the text looks like, font sizes, spacing, and things like that. MindMeister is probably the best option in terms of graphic organizing that I found so far for Chromebooks. I really like Inspiration for desktop computers and iPads, But since Inspiration is not available for Chromebooks yet, MindMeister is a good option. So you can create mind maps or graphic organizers within the MindMeister app. Lots of options in terms of formatting, which is you can see next to arrow number 2. In this case, I'm organizing an essay on ice cream. So kids who can't organize ideas linearly, kind of in that traditional formal outline, can organize them visually in a graphic organizer. And then with MindMeister, we can export that mind map into a Google Doc as an outline. And so you see that next to that blue arrow. So if I can organize my ideas visually first, I can export it into a Google Doc as a formal outline, and I can finish that particular piece of writing right in Google Docs. For kids with executive functioning issues, Google Keep is a really good app to know about. This is available across lots of different platforms. It's available for Android, iPad, but it's also available as a Chrome app. Basically, I like to think of it as a refrigerator door that you would stick lots of different notes on. So, I have a reminder to work on this webinar next to arrow number 1. I need to remember to buy flowers, chocolate, and a Lego Minecraft for Valentine's Day. And arrow number 3 is my grocery list. So, and I can log into Google Keep on another device and find the same screen. All right, then the last thing I want to talk about quickly, and then we should have plenty of time for questions, Andrew. I want to talk about Google Docs tools and add-ons. So within Google Docs, there's this whole little world of assistive technology tools also. So under tools, you see that tool drop-down menu in this Google Doc. The most useful tool for kids with dyslexia is the new voice typing tool. That was activated probably in the fall of this year, September or October, and it's providing built-in dictation right within Google Docs, and it works really, really well. So basically, you open it up, you click on that tools in that drop-down menu, you click on voice typing, and it will open up a microphone icon. Once you click on that microphone icon, it will activate it, and you just start talking, just like the dictation tool on your iPad or on your Mac desktop, and it will start transcribing in real time. So you don't even have to turn it on and off. You turn it on, you just start talking, and it will print out what you say. It's really, really accurate, and a really fantastic tool for our kids on a Chromebook. Then in the add-ons drop-down menu, this is kind of a whole new world, in terms of adding these tools right to Google Docs. So you can see I have a list of add-ons that I've already added, but if you want to find these in your Google Docs, you go to the Get Add-ons option, which is at the bottom of that menu, and that's going to take you to an add-ons store within Google Docs. And I was blown away when I found this. So you're still in Google Docs, you're in the add-on store, and you can find some of these add-ons that I'm talking about. I'm going to highlight 2 of them. So the first one is called VeritySpell. VeritySpell is very similar to Ginger. It's an advanced spell checker. So here's a document that I need spell checked. And if you look at the word that's highlighted, chocolate, I've spelled chocolate phonetically, like a student with dyslexia might. And if I look over in the VeritySpell window, which will open up on the right-hand side of your screen, I can choose the one I want, which is the first one next to that blue arrow. I click that green check mark, and it will insert it into my text. And the last add-on, which is our last tool, before we talk about some questions, is EasyBib. For those of you who have kids who are working on research reports, they can get tripped up really quickly on that bibliography page or that works cited page. The MLA formatting is not easy to remember for your citations. EasyBib will do it for you. So if I'm including this New York Times article in my works cited page, creating a computer voice that people like, copy that web address up in that URL bar, paste it into the EasyBib add-on, which will be on the right-hand side of your screen, next to number 1. You click search, it will show you a search result. If that's the article you want, you click on the select button underneath number 2. It will give you the MLA citation. You click on Add Bibliography to Doc, and it will insert it into your Works Cited page. And then you don't have to worry about remembering how to format that Works Cited page. So the key takeaways from this 45 minutes. Chromebooks are often relatively inexpensive, which is a huge thing for schools, a huge thing for a lot of families who can't invest a lot of money in assistive technology. Assistive technology tools are found in Chrome extensions and apps. There are a few accessibility features built into the Chrome operating system, but generally they are not for kids with dyslexia or other learning issues. In order to find those AT tools, you need to really explore those extensions and apps. And finally, Chromebooks can be a huge help to kids with dyslexia and other learning issues. So we probably have tons of questions coming in. I'm going to take a quick drink of water while you're getting yourself together, Andrew, and we'll go on with that.
Thanks, Jamie. That was really great. Really gave me a good impression or a good knowledge of what Chromebooks are all about and the options. We do have some questions for our audience. I do want to remind you, if you are watching and you have a question, just type it in the chat bar. And if you want to tell us where you're from, your name, or you want to remain anonymous, that's completely fine too. So let's go to the first question that came from AdaptTech. AdaptTech is asking about Ginger, and I think about some of the other spell check extensions that you had mentioned. How do you get those spell corrections back into your document, back into Google Docs? Is that something you have to cut and paste, or is there some automatic way to do that?
Yeah, in Ginger, you need to, once it's in that Ginger box on the right-hand side, and it's corrected, you'll see the corrected text in that box, and then you copy and paste it back into your Google Doc. I believe with the Verity spell, which I showed you at the end, because that's an add-on within the Google Doc itself, I think you can just click a button and it will insert it automatically, or it will insert each correction as you go along back into your Google Doc. So that answered that question, I think.
Great, appreciate that. Now we have a question from Going in Circles. I don't know if that same thing means...
Sometimes I find myself going in circles.
Some frustration, but she has a 5th grader with a number of issues: dyslexia, dysgraphia, expressive receptive language disorder. She's got a recommendation from her school to use Kurzweil or Solo Suite, and she's wondering if that can be available on a Chromebook.
Kurzweil cannot. Kurzweil is a standalone piece of software for either Windows or desktop computers. The Solo Suite is made by Don Johnston, so that's including things like Co-Writer or Draft Builder for the desktop computer. So that Co-Writer Universal app that I showed you earlier could be found in Solo, but it's called Co-Writer Universal for a Chrome extension. So you can get some of those tools as Chrome tools, but the Kurzweil, no, you can't.
Okay, great. That's very helpful. Now, we had a couple questions come in, and some of our other users answer them, so that's kind of great. But I also do want to pose a question to you. When you were talking about the extensions that you can get on the Chromebook, are those also available on a Mac, for example, or are these kind of things limited to Chromebook, or is it case by case?
It's case by case. It depends on what the tool is, but I think I mentioned this at the beginning. A lot of these companies, these software companies who have developed assistive technology tools for desktop computers, like years ago, 5-6 years ago, maybe 10 now, are really getting on board with this Chromebook platform and creating extension or Chrome app extension. I'm going in circles now. Or Chrome extensions or Chrome apps versions of their desktop software. So a lot of those tools that teachers might be used to seeing or parents might be used to seeing on a desktop computer are more and more becoming available for Chromebooks.
Great. Another user, Lori D, mentioned apps for parental control. At the start of your presentation, you had talked about creating accounts that were limited, perhaps not allowing a child to use YouTube if they got distracted. Can you maybe touch on some of those parental controls, or what parents should be thinking about in terms of tools they can use on a Chromebook to help limit access to things that might be distracting or inappropriate?
Mm-hmm. Well, I also mentioned at the beginning that a lot of tasks that you might be doing on a Chromebook do involve the internet, right? So in terms of information that might be distracting or even inappropriate for younger kids, you can find on the internet. So you really have to go into the settings, into your child's Google account. You just go into the settings, and you can limit what kind of content they have access to. So you can block out certain search criteria in YouTube, or you can block out specific websites that you don't want your kids to have access to. And then when they sign on to their Google account on any Chromebook or any device, those settings will follow them, and then they will be able to access that as well.
Awesome. Now, a couple of our parent people in our parent audience, Ham's mom is one of them, have asked about free apps or programs out there for dyslexic students, specifically related to decoding or letter sound recognition. I know that's a very specific question, and many of the things you've talking about could be helpful. But is there something in particular that you think that's free that could help with a decoding issue or letter sound recognition issue on a Chromebook?
On a Chromebook? Probably that Speak It app, that extension called Speak It at the very beginning, can help with that kind of sound symbol relationship. I think that's what she's looking for. The downside though to that, and that one's free, but the downside of that is it does not do the synchronized highlighting like Read and Write for Google does. And that really helps with the sound symbol relationship, because you can follow along with your eyes as you're listening to it with your ears, and then reading becomes that multi-sensory experience, which is a lot better, I think. So in terms of free tools, I think the Speak It can help a little bit, but you might need to invest a little bit of money to get something more specific that might suit your needs better.
And Ham's mom, I just want to also let you know that on Understood, there are some articles that talk about apps. They may not be for the Chromebook, but free tools that you can use for that may touch on decoding or letter sound recognition. I think we have time for two more questions. So the first one is from Sherlock Cody, really interested in the voice typing tools for Google Docs. Is that limited to Google Docs, or is that more broad? And I think she also wants to know what was the name of that particular tool.
All right, so it's called voice typing. So if you're in a Google Doc and you click on the Tools drop-down menu, you'll see voice type. Although I should say, and I forgot to say this earlier, so I'm glad that this question came in. In order to use that voice typing tool within Google Docs, you do need to be using the Chrome web browser. So if you're on a Chromebook device itself, that's the browser you'll be using. But if you're on a desktop computer, like a Mac or a Windows computer, and you're accessing Google Docs, you do need to access it through the Chrome web browser in order for that voice typing feature to show up. So it's called voice typing. It's in the drop-down menu under Tools, and you do need to be using the Chrome web browser to access that.
Great. And now I think we have time for one last question. It's from Allison. It's a little bit of a tough question, and it's very specific. So I think,
good one to end with.
if there's, if it takes a little longer to answer it, or if you want to refer them to another resource or article, that's fine. But Allison's child or a student has a speech impairment, but the problem is the spelling is so poor that some of these extensions are difficult for this child or student to use. Any thoughts there? And that's a very difficult question, so maybe there isn't a clean answer, but I just wondered if you had any thoughts in terms of technology for Allison.
So kids with speech impediments or speech impairments, generally the dictation tool is not going to be effective for them. So for that child, I would steer them more towards those word prediction programs where they can use the keyboard, to spell words as best that they can, but they have that word prediction, to help them out. So, I think dictation technology has come a long way. So it wouldn't hurt to try out a dictation tool with a child with, some speech difficulties. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But in general, I think the word prediction is going to work better for that.
Great. I know I said that was the last one, but I want to let Sherlock Cody get his or her question in. This was about the voice typing. She's wondering if that's exclusive to Google Docs or applicable to email, Gmail, or other areas.
It is, at this point, it is exclusive to Google Docs, but it's a Google tool. So maybe they will make it available for Gmail eventually. But in the meantime, you could use one of those other tools that has dictation with your Gmail.
Great. I know that was a bit of a rapid fire of questions, but I think every parent out there really appreciates that. This has been a great webinar. I want to emphasize to parents out there that this webinar will be archived on u.org/calendar, and you can go to u.org/calendar to see all of our current events, future events, and past events that have been archived. Thanks, Jamie. Any last words before we close it out?
No, I'm ready for lunch though, Andrew. You can take me out?
We've got lunch ready. Thanks again, Jamie, and thanks to everyone for watching. Again, it's u.org/calendar, and have a great day.